Welcome to the virtual board meeting of the Board of School Directors of the School District of Springfield Township. The reading of the mission statement. The mission of the School District of Springfield Township is to educate and develop all students as learners and citizens who are high achieving, resilient, and responsible in a changing global community. Mr. King?
Mr. Bedard.
Here.
Mr. DeFranco.
Here.
Dr. Atlin. Ms. Jordan.
Here.
Mr. Lapidus.
Here.
Mr. Needleman.
Here.
Ms. Sarsfield.
Here.
Ms. Lipinski.
Here.
Dr. Taratuski.
Here. Are there any public comments on agenda items? No. Okay. Reports and information, administrative reports, Dr. Hacker.
Thank you, Dr. Taratuski. I do have a few items that I would like to share with everyone, but first, I'd like to comment on the recent events. I don't normally comment on situations that are occurring in the news. I try to stay away from political types of discussions or from trying to impart my own personal views, but I think this situation warrants a comment in light of who we are as educators and what we are trying to do for the students in our township. We all, I know, are experiencing intense sorrow at what we all view as another senseless death that has occurred, and obviously an act of extraordinary racism. This impacts all of us as we all join together, and as we all should join together. I could name many, many names of young men who have been senselessly killed. I could name many cities such as Ferguson and Baton Rouge and Baltimore where riots have occurred because of these senseless deaths. But I want to point out that racism, unfortunately, also goes hand in hand with many forms of injustice and discrimination. And unfortunately, we see too many examples across our country in a lot of different areas, not just race. We've seen an increase in anti-Asian sentiment because of references to the China or Chinese virus. We've seen acts of violence against members of the LGBTQ community and transgender youth and individuals. Last year, we saw 11 individuals killed in a house of worship in Pittsburgh for no apparent reason other than because of their religion. So unfortunately, all of these horrific acts and examples of injustice and discrimination come in many forms, and it really does impact us all. So I want to try to turn this into something positive, and that is, I think we all need to join together, and regardless of how we express what we are feeling, the means by which we do it, whether or not some people believe we're saying it strongly enough or forcefully enough or in the right ways, what matters is what we do, and our actions really do speak louder than words. And I've tried to share this with staff members as well. Our equity initiative is all about helping our staff members and our students to really be supported and to help them to understand not only what is behind many of these acts of hatred, but how to avoid them and how to prevent them. We have to be the ones to teach not only our own children, but the children who are entrusted to us. And so I think what's really critical at this point, and what we have tried to do this week, is to share resources with families that perhaps they can share with their children. We've tried to share resources with staff. Unfortunately, these are challenging times because we're all home. Had we been in school physically, it might have been easier to pull staff together and to say, hey, if you get questions or concerns expressed to you by your children, here's what you can say. So we're trying to do that in this virtual environment to help everyone get through this in a way that makes sense. I want to simply end by saying that we all must stand up as a community, not only a community of educators, but as a Springfield Township community against racism and these continuing acts of hatred that we've all witnessed, if we ever expect to eliminate those acts across the country. So I hope we can all do that. I know there have been community forums in the past. We all hope the violence at all ends will stop so that we can continue to do the work that needs to be done. So I just wanted to share that with all of you. I don't know if, before I move on, if anybody else wanted to have anything to say. Karen, you have to unmute.
Yes.
There
Thank
you
you, Nancy. I certainly appreciate your comments and appreciate you recognizing this at the meeting. I just wanted, I had a question just about any resources and support. If anyone who is, who's listening to this meeting or viewing this meeting, if they do need any supports, I'm sure they can reach out to the district, to any of the principals, teachers, guidance counselors, or anyone in the district for that support, and we'll direct you to the appropriate resources.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thanks, Karen.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thank Nancy for her comments, and you have my support. I think it was very well said. Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Walter.
I do also want to say that, just as a note, the Montgomery County website has a lot of resources as well. So if anyone needs resources, they could also visit the Montgomery County website and find, phone number, hotlines, those kinds of things.
Mm-hmm.
That's great to know. Thank you. Appreciate that, Gretchen. Thanks,
believe-
everyone.
Sure. I believe that our own Multicultural Parents Association is also sharing resources with the community. Mm-hmm.
Great.
So, okay.
So some good news that I have, it's all a matter of perspective. We've been hearing now for weeks that the state budget was going to be atrocious and that we all were going to suffer in terms of whatever our education subsidy. If you may recall, and I'll be doing my final budget presentation at the next board meeting, we generally have approximately a little under $10 million that we typically get from the state towards our $63 million budget. Funding is slated to be level for 2021. We had heard it was really going to be slashed and districts would suffer. But I learned today that the good news is for 2021, while other areas have been cut, education has not been cut, which is really terrific. The other area that we had heard that would be cut, many of you may receive that homestead farmstead rebate, which is based on the average assessment of homes in the township. We had heard that was going to be significantly slashed. It looks like that will be close to what you would have expected last year, or what you would have received last year. I think there's a difference of around $5 less. So fortunately, that has also not been significantly impacted. So that's good news for us. Unfortunately, part of the bad news, which Ken and I are going to be scheduling a finance committee to discuss, is we're going to have obviously increased expenses if we're planning for going back to school, and we need lots of sanitizing and cleaning materials and equipment and so forth. So in planning for September, we do anticipate many of our costs will be greater. But another piece of good news, I was just notified again that the state will be offering COVID-19 grants for 2021. We know we will receive, at least at this point, a minimum of $120,000. And that money is specifically designed to go towards cleaning and sanitizing supplies, PPE, thermometers, even Chromebooks and technology to go to children who may need those devices at home, plexiglass if we need to separate secretaries from the public, for example. So it's exciting to know we're getting additional funding because we've all had many, many concerns when we have our superintendent's meetings about how we're going to pay for all the materials that we need to have on hand. So those are two good pieces of news that I'm happy to be able to share. And from a student perspective, I also just want to talk about two recent events that I was able to attend. Yesterday, Taylor Pellegrini, who is one of our business teachers and who's involved in our project-based learning cohort, did a phenomenal Shark Tank with her students, and I was one of the Shark Tank judges for that. And the ideas were unbelievably clever. One of them was a plastic device that you can put over the handlebar on your supermarket cart to protect you when you go into the supermarket from picking up germs on the handle. So that was one of the clever ideas. The other was a plastic zip bag that you can add and make larger also for when you go to the supermarket if you don't want to utilize and waste and not necessarily recycle their plastic bags. So there were a lot of really clever ideas, including facial cream made out of all natural fruit and vegetable ingredients, which was one I really liked. So really, really clever, and I'm really happy to see that in the midst of all of this other stuff that's going on, our project-based learning cohorts are continuing doing projects with our kids, which is exciting to see. And then finally, I'll just end very quickly by talking about the Voices of Excellence banquet, which occurred on Friday evening. It was 2 hours of amazing fun and recognition of, first of all, our senior students in Voices of Excellence who are graduating and learning about where they're going to colleges. And some of the schools are amazing. I mean, Columbia University and Amherst, Dickinson. I mean, these kids are just, not only are they incredible contributors to the school, but they're smart and they're talented and they really do represent excellence as it is in the title. And then they also obviously acknowledged incoming officers for next year, and they did some reporting out of many of the activities that the students had been involved in over the year, and a significant amount of community service activities, I'm very happy to say. So Mr. Thompson is a wonderful sponsor for Voices of Excellence. He recognized all the students who are graduating individually. We had 65 people in attendance, including parents and family members, virtually, of course. So it was a great night, and we were happy to recognize those students. So that's my report. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, Dr. Hacker. All of those things are the reason that we're on the board here, and those are the highlights that we have at the meeting. It's always nice to see the kids when they come to the meeting, and we've kind of missed that this spring. So anyway, but thank you. I wanted to announce also that we had an executive session to review the school safety report just before the formal board meeting. So we'll move on to new business. Personnel. The Board of School Directors approves the following personnel as presented in the attachment: certificated personnel, support personnel, temporary personnel, conference workshop attendance. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
I don't know if I'm looking at the most up-to-date agenda, but there was an extended school year program personnel item on this motion as well.
Extended school year. Is that updated, Ken?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So we'll add we'll add extended school year personnel to the personnel agenda.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thanks.
It's on the agenda. It's on the agenda, but if you don't have it in front of you, there was some change to some additions in the certified personnel, ESY, and one of the leaves was added.
Okay. Any other comments or questions? Do you need me to reread the motion?
Let me see. Not sure. You have an older agenda? Dr. Howard, do you have
I have it in front of me on my phone. Do you want me to
Okay.
reread it?
If you didn't, I'm sorry, but did you, probably should if you didn't hit all the categories.
Mine does have extended school year program personnel on it.
But I
Okay.
don't think she read them.
No, correct. The Board of School Directors approves the following personnel as presented in the attachment: certificated personnel, support personnel, temporary personnel, extended school year program personnel, and conference workshop attendance. Okay, and I believe Mr. Bedard gave the first motion. Is there
Let's
a
do it
motion?
again. Do it again.
Okay, is there a motion?
Motion. I motion.
And a
Again.
second.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
We're doing the best we can.
Hanging in there. All right, thank you. Mr. King?
Yes, ma'am. The motion has been read and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries.
All right. Reading from the most recent agenda. Number 2, 2019-2020 Keystone Exams. Recommended motion. The Board of School Directors approves the waiver of the administration of the 2019-2020 Pennsylvania State Keystone Examinations for all students enrolled in coursework requiring an end of course Keystone examination. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Any comments or questions? Okay, Mr. King?
The motion has been read and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
And the motion carries.
Number 3, Lakeside Educational Network. The Board of School Directors approves the agreement between Lakeside Educational Network and Springfield Township School District for the 2020-2021 school year, subject to the final review of the solicitor and superintendent. Is there a motion?
Motion.
And a second?
Second.
Okay, any comments or questions? Okay, Mr. King?
Motion has been read and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. The motion carries.
Okay, so there are no other items. We're asking for public comments on non-agenda items.
So Dr. Taratusky, Natasha Scott is in the audience. If she would like to speak, she can raise her hand.
Okay. Ms. Scott, would you like to address the board?
I can allow her to speak.
Sure. Oh,
Natasha,
No, she doesn't want to address the board. We were just listening.
okay, thank you. Okay. All right, so seeing that there are no other comments from the public, future meeting dates, there's a regular board meeting on Tuesday, June 16th, 2020 at 7 p.m. That will be a virtual meeting. There's also a virtual interim board meeting on Tuesday, August 4th, 2020 at 7 p.m. No board committees will be held at this time.
So if you don't mind, I would just like to quickly add that Mr. King and I will be scheduling a finance committee shortly, and we do have a property committee meeting at 8 o'clock tomorrow morning.
Okay.
And finally, one last thing, I just want to remind everyone that a revised link for the thought exchange surveys will be coming out for everyone. Please participate. We have questions on suggestions for improvements to virtual instruction, challenges that families faced, what went well, and so forth. We also have, by the way, a survey going out to staff as well. so that we can learn what can we better do to assist them that they may have been having challenges with during this period of virtual instruction. So I just wanted to make that announcement as well.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Hacker. And the board committee meetings, dates, and agendas are always posted on the district website under school board. Okay, thank you very much for joining us this evening. Have a good night and a good week.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everybody.
Everybody.
Take care.
Take care.
Good night.
Be well.